All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, How Good Habits Drive Happiness, the Science and Practice of Good Life. My name is Marissa Frieder. I'm a Senior Program Manager for the WorkWell NYC team. And we're fortunate today to be joined by Jeremy Taylor, who is the Worksite Wellness Coordinator for the Department of Health. And he's going to talk to us about how to develop healthy habits that will promote happiness and well-being. There we go. All right. So before I turn it over to Jeremy, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about WorkWell NYC. In case you're new to us, welcome. We are the city's Worksite Wellness program, and we're here to help you live well and be well and work well. So our goal is to create work sites across the city that makes it easier for our employees to live healthy and active lifestyles. We know that health is not just not being sick. It's so much more. It's mental, it's emotional, as we'll talk about today, it's financial, it's physical, and we know that health exists on a spectrum, and so we aim to be here for you with health and well-being resources and programs and support to help you move more, eat well, be well, and take action to prevent disease, no matter where you are on your health journey. So today is our second of 6 webinars in our Be Well series, and so I just want to highlight some of the upcoming webinars. Next month, March 13th, we'll be focusing on nutrition, and we have upcoming webinars on stress, staying calm, and resilience. And you can find more information about all of these at nyc.gov/bewell. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Taylor, who's the Worksite Wellness Coordinator at the Department of Health, to give us the secret sauce to a happy life. So take it away, Jeremy.
All right, secret sauce. Here we go. Thanks, Marissa. So at the end, my name is Jeremy Taylor, as was mentioned, and at the end of today's workshop, my colleague, Dr. Monica Erosh-Charnai, will join me for a few questions at the end. So let's get started, jump right in. Today we'll discuss a few strategies to help you become better prepared to improve your happiness and your well-being. We'll do this by first talking about happiness and well-being. We'll then use a simple tool to map and also score our well-being, and this will help you understand the components of your well-being, right? How well your well-being is, and to think more strategically about improving it. And then finally, you'll create your very own well-being to-do list. So we hope that after today's workshop, you'll understand the basics of well-being, learn how to map your well-being, understand and be ready to use a simple and practical well-being mapping tool, and learn 6 basic self-care strategies. All right. So let me start by asking you a question. How do you define happiness? So I want you to think about that for a second. How do you define happiness? So for many of us, right, we're all unique individuals. So we define happiness in many different ways that are unique to us. Using a general definition, we can describe happiness as a specific emotion that people feel when good things happen, and which often co-occurs with a specific facial expression, the smile. It's interesting that people tend to think about happiness as a result of something good in their lives, right? And they want to be happy because it feels good. But happiness is more. Happiness is a way to improve our lives, right? As positive emotions can lead us to think more creatively and even try new things. And as a result, we are happy and we can approach the world in new ways, right? We can develop new interests, new relationships, and even new physical skills. And all of these things can lead to positive outcomes. So finally, the key to understanding happiness is realizing that happiness does not mean the absence of negative emotions, as nobody is immune to life stressors, but rather it's how we describe the negatives in our lives and how we respond to them. So the goal today is to increase our happiness. And how can we do that, right? So let's go right in. We can all train, happiness comes from within, right? We can all train our brains for happiness, as it is wired for happiness. We can train our brains to think in a happier, more optimistic, and even a more resilient way, and effectively training our brains to be happier. Here's a simple, practical way that we can train ourselves to become happier and our brain to think happier. So one exercise you can do is to increase your happiness is by spotlighting positive emotions to build happiness. So what does that mean? Here's an example. For next week, each night when you go to bed, um, write down 3 things that worked well that day, right? Good things that made you happy and why. People who have people who've been doing these types of exercises for 6 months and longer, they found that they were more satisfied with their lives and felt less depressed. And most people who start doing this happiness building exercise and spotlighting those positive things, they end up doing it for a long time. Why? Because happiness building exercises, unlike dieting, are relatively easy and fun to do, and they make us happy. So now I want to take a few seconds to think about what well-being means to you, right? We just spoke about happiness. So take a few seconds to think about what does the word well-being, what does that mean to you? All right. So like happiness, right? Well-being can mean different things to different people. Why? Because well-being comes from our thoughts, our actions, our experiences, and it's a collection of all those things which contribute to our happiness. And these, for most people, often include emotional and physical health, work, home environment, financial situation, and relationships. So, for example, when we think positive, we tend to have greater emotional well being. When we pursue meaningful relationships, we tend to have better social well being. And when we have money struggles, we have lower financial well being. So when we think about our own well-being, right, we interpret our happiness in a broader sense. We evaluate all those areas of our life that contribute to our happiness, and by this, they're contributing to our well-being. So as our well-being is rarely what we would like it to be, we need to work on improving it. And we can do this because we have control over many things that contributes to our well-being. So for the rest of the time here, we'll discuss some strategies and build on some skills which can help us improve our well-being. So let's get started. So now we have an idea of what well-being is. We're going to understand the things that contribute to well-being. Right. So the different sections of this well-being wheel or wheel of life represent different areas of our life which most significantly contributes to our well-being. Health, family and friends, significant others, personal growth, fun and leisure, home environment, career, and money. So this is how it works. And we're going to work through this together. This was also, all right, so considering each category of the wheel, right? We'll score that area from 0 to 10. And depending on how well we're doing in that particular area, 0 meaning we're not doing good at all, and 10 meaning we're doing really great. So if you score 10 in each area, that means we have a perfect circle, which represents a perfect well-being. But as no one scores 10 in all areas of their life, no one will have a perfect circle. Yet the wheel is useful as it'll help us see how far we are from it. And also it'll help us to identify areas of our well-being that need the most work. So now we'll create our very own well-being wheel. And if you a copy of the wheel was sent out, and it's also included as an attachment. So you can take a copy of the wheel, and we're going to start first with health. And if you don't have a copy, you can also just use a sheet of paper nearby. So let's first start with health. And I'll ask myself, how well am I doing in this area? How does my health contribute to my overall well-being? It's okay for the most part. There's some things that can be improved. So for this area, I can score myself maybe around 6. So here we'll draw a line at 6, right? In that health section. All right. So as you're scoring yourself, it's important that you're honest and that your scores reflect on where you really are, right? And not where you think you ought to be. Otherwise, you're not going to get the truth about your well-being. So we're going to discuss and go through each of the sections, and I'm going to give you a few seconds to fill in where you are in each of the areas on the wheel. So the next section we're going to go to is family and friends. So think about this area in your life and think about where you can place your score. Give you a few seconds. So in this area, perhaps I could put around an 8. So I put 8 and I'll draw my line across in that area. And then let's move across to the next section, which is significant other. So again, take a few seconds and think about this area and where you would like to place your score. All right. So let's move on to the next. And the next is personal growth. Um, and for this, perhaps I can put around a 6. So I'll draw a 6 and put my score there and take a few seconds to do yours as well. And then the next section, which is home and environment, or sorry, fun and leisure. um, so think about that area and where you would score yourself. All right, and then the next area, which is home environment, followed by career, and then the last section, which is money. So now we've put all our scores on our circle, and we can connect these scores across all areas of our well-being to see how far we are at this point from having the perfect wheel, right? So if you just draw and try to connect those, um, and this can also help you see which areas will take the most work, right? So you can make this wheel even more useful, and you can continue to fill this out as we go along. And you can make this wheel even more useful by listing each area, 3 to 5 things that works against you, scoring better on them, right? And then next to each of those problems or issues, identify one thing that you can do to eliminate or reduce its negative effect on your well-being. So this way you have a simple image right in front of you, and it's showing you clearly how well your overall well-being is, and also showing how you're doing in the different areas of your well-being, right? The main problems working against you in your well-being, and then thinking about the practical ways that you can help solve them. So you can use this tool not just once, but also if you set specific well-being goals for yourself to help monitor your progress as well. So let's move on to the next. So we just mapped our well-being, right? And we kind of know how well our well-being is. And then we identify the areas that we need improving. So then what's next? So we're going to touch on a few self-care strategies. And self-care is the most important tool everyone can use to improve well-being in improve all areas of our well-being. So let's talk about some of these self-care strategies. So we'll start by first defining self-care, right? Self-care is all those actions which can help us improve our well-being. Self-care includes actions such as being active, positive, connected, being mindful, purposeful, curious. But we're all unique individuals, and how we do each of these actions of self-care, they'll be different, So they're different and unique to us and to our circumstances. So I'll ask a question to you. How many of you currently practice any form of self-care? And you can give your answer using the poll. All right, it'll give you about, all right, that's cool. All right, so it looks like majority of us practice self-care at least sometimes, right? 46%. Um, and majority of us practice some self-care often, once in a while, right? So that's a good thing. For most of us, we have some type of self-care that we're doing at some point. So now let's discuss a few actions that we can do for those areas identified: active, positive, connected, mindful, purposeful, and curious. So, to make the discussion more meaningful and personal, please take the included my well-being to-do list, which is attached here. Um, and if you don't have it printed out, you can also create one as we go along. And what we'll do is we'll discuss the 6 actions of self-care listed on the form, one after another. But we're going to stop for about 10 to 20 seconds after each to give you some time to reflect on how what was discussed relates to you, and to let you identify and list 1 or 2 things you promise yourself that you'll do to improve your well-being. So this way, at the end, hopefully you will have your own well-being to-do list. So you will have your own well-being to-do list, and you will have a list of things that you promise yourself that you will start doing to improve your well-being. So you should list only very simple things that you can start doing today, so in time they can make a difference. This should not be a wish list of things you always wanted to do but never did, as that will not work. It should be things you believe you can commit to right now at this moment. So let's get started. All right. So let's start with the first self-care strategy: be active. When we're active and we keep our body strong and fit, we feel happier and healthier, and we can deal with stress more effectively. And I understand the gym is not the only option, right? But if we need extra motivation, joining a health club, um, we can join a health club and we can meet maybe interesting people who can motivate us and even make friends as well. But you don't have to go to the gym. Just find a physical activity that you enjoy, one that works for you, and stick with it. You can bike, get off the bus to stop early, take the stairs, dance more often. But if you do not like any of these or simply can't make time for it, just think about powering through general regular today activities like housework or doing some gardening with extra vigor, shoveling snow. We had lots of snow yesterday. Those are great ways for us to do simple activities and think about those to get some physical activity into our day. And to be active, we will also need to keep our body healthy by eating healthy and eating a balanced and nutritious diet, and additionally, by getting enough sleep. So now let's stop for a few seconds, and I'll give you a few seconds to reflect on how what we discussed about being active and keeping active relates to you. So take your worksheet and list no more than 1 or 2 things you promise yourself you will do to keep your body healthy and more active. All right. So let's move on to the next section. And again, remember, this is your to-do list. So feel free to take your time and fill that in as we're going throughout the rest of the presentation. The next section is of self-care. The next action is being positive. So be positive. A lot depends on how we look at life, right? With do we look at life with a positive outlook on life? We tend to feel stronger and happier. So thinking positive can help us improve our health and also increase our ability to manage stressful times more confidently. But we don't all have by nature cheery personalities, right? Seeing the glass always half full. The good news though is that we all have a built-in capacity for positivity. We're actually programmed to notice the good in life, right? And pay attention to the positive. This helps us to be more optimistic. It can help us be positive and more forward thinking. This also means that we can all work on improving our outlook on life, right? By teaching ourselves to focus more on the good, both in ourselves and also in the world around us. So I want to mention a few simple practical steps you can you can take to increase your positivity. So first, we're going to practice positive self-talk, right? We need to remind ourselves from time to time what an amazing, strong, and unique individual we are, right? And these are times, however, when there are times whenever when this is not so easy, we just simply do not feel great or we don't feel wonderful. But those are the times when we should turn to those around us, to those who care about us, so that they can also remind us of how unique and how beautiful and strong, amazing people we are. So another thing, so positive self-talk, and the second we can practice is negative thought stopping. So in other words, stopping those negative thoughts that make you feel anxious, sad, and angry at the moment they arise in your mind. Become aware of them and make a conscious effort to stop them. So start today and monitor your thoughts. You may be very surprised to learn just how much your thoughts are negative, thoughts that are pulling you down or making you feel bad. So the next time when you catch yourself thinking negatively, remember that to neutralize the harmful effect of a single negative thought, your mind and body, you'll need to think three positive ones. Okay? So we have positive self-talk, negative thought stopping, and finally practicing gratitude. Counting our blessings and making a conscious effort to be grateful, that can help us focus on and appreciate the positive aspects of our life. And by this, increasing our own happiness and our own well-being. So I'll give you a few seconds to reflect on what we just talked about and how it relates to you, and fill in the one or two things you promise yourself you will do to become more positive. All right. So we'll go on to the next. The next one is being connected, right? And this is the next action of self-care. So it's clear that being connected to those around us is important, right? As social beings, we need to feel understood, need to feel recognized and affirmed by others. We all need to give and receive affection, and in other words, we all need to feel that we belong. And without this sense of belonging, we can often feel lost, alone, or unappreciated. So we need to make a conscious effort, to find a group we can fit in and contribute to, a group that gives us a sense of belonging and also serve as a source of help and support when we need it. Another way to connect to people is practicing pro-social behavior. In other words, doing kind acts for others. Studies show that pro-social behavior increases our happiness more than treating ourselves. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't treat ourselves, but it suggests that we are likely to reach greater happiness when we do kind things for other people. So take a few seconds. I'll have you fill in on your list one or two things you promise yourself that you will do to be better connected. Maybe finding new ways of making friends or working on becoming more grateful, etc. So, all right. So the next action in self-care is being mindful. And being mindful is also a way of being connected, right? And another action step we can take to improve our overall well-being. When we're mindful, we are connected with ourselves and with the world around us. When we're mindful, we're not just wasting time with regretting past mistakes or worrying about what the future may bring. We're in the here and now, appreciating the moment, right? We can focus all our attention on something in the world around us, on what we're doing, thinking, or feeling at that moment. For example, focusing all our attention on the food we're eating or how the sun feels on our face as we're walking down the street. Or, example, this morning I was coming on the train and listening to the music, but being distracted thinking about, what do I have to do today versus taking a few moments to be in that moment and enjoying the music that I was listening to and how great it was. So We have to practice being mindful at any moment in our day, right? Because being mindful can help you make every day count. So I want you to stop for a second, take a few seconds, reflect on, again, how being mindful relates to you, and fill two things, one or two things on your worksheet that you promise yourself you'll do. All right. So the next is being curious. Um, Being curious means that we keep learning, right? Since we're learning learning new things helps keep excitement in our life, right? So I love this one. Staying curious about the world is so important, as obtaining new skills and learning new things can help us feel better about ourselves, right? When we master new skills or learn something new, we feel good about what we can achieve. Think about kids who are always learning and feeling happy as they're discovering something new. Um, with improved self-esteem, right? We deal with whatever life throws us, and we can deal with that in a much more efficient way, and we can become more resilient. So, how do we do this, right? We need to find something that interests us, such as learning a new language, exploring an exotic cuisine, getting creative with a paintbrush, getting practical, and maybe do some home improvement. We can also attend a workshop or join a hobby group, cooking classes, photography, chess, poetry. The list is endless, right? And it can go on and on. Again, the important thing is that you find something that interests you, right? So take a few seconds and fill in one or two things that you promise yourself to do um, to live a life rich with learning and excitement and curiosity. All right. So we move on to the next one. Um, so you're probably curious to the next slide. Let's see. So the next slide is being purposeful, right? So we should also try to find purpose in our life by finding things that matter to us. Purpose is essential to living a meaningful life, and living a meaningful life also supports our well-being. To have a purpose, right, means to serve something other than ourselves. There are many ways to find purpose. Some find purpose through caring for their family, helping those in need, or dedicating themselves to their work, maybe volunteering or maybe religion. We should never underestimate the impact of having a purpose on our well being, as one fascinating study clearly demonstrated this. So, what happened was a psychologist gave people in one nursing home a plant to take care of, but not to the people in another nursing home, right? So, one nursing home had a plant to take care of, and the other one didn't. After a year and a half, those who cared for a plant were more social, they were more alert, more cheerful, more active, healthy, and actually lived longer. So even something as simple as, in this case, taking care of a plant gave people a powerful sense of purpose. A purpose, both big and small, it can energize us, right? Giving us this extra strength that we may need to deal with difficulties in our lives. So for you, take a few seconds again and think about, you know, your purpose, and ask yourself this question: what do I serve? Can you help identify a purpose? So take your worksheet and fill that in for me for a few seconds. All right. So all of these things we talked about, right? So practicing self-care, being active, being positive, being connected, being mindful, purposeful, and curious. By doing all these things, we can become more resilient. All of these actions of self-care builds our resilience. And when we're resilient, we believe more confidently that we can manage our life, right? And we can recover from even the most difficult life experiences. And all of this contributes to a better well-being. So, to wrap this up, I'm going to have you guys plan for the future. So, your to what should be the plan for your future? Your well-being to-do list, which you have, right? And if you didn't get to finish it throughout as we were speaking, feel free to take this and continue it after the webinar is concluded. And remember, this is your list, and this is a promise that you're going to make to yourself that by taking these actions, you'll build good habits, right? You'll change your attitude to increase happiness and to improve your overall well-being. Okay. So it was really great having you guys on here, right? And we're going to recap a little bit what we did today. And we started off talking about happiness and what it meant to us. And we discussed well-being in general. And we also created our wheel of well-being or our wheel of life, and a wheel that's unique to us, right? One that helps us understand our overall well-being and to understand what areas of our well-being need some work and needs some improvement. And we finally created our own well-being to-do list, a list of simple things that we promise ourselves we will start doing today, so we can improve our well-being and live happier and a more satisfying life. So just to briefly mention, we discussed the Wheel of Well-being. You should have that worksheet, well-being to-do list, also a list of references, right? Here are a few examples here. And that reference list is included if you want to learn more and do some more reading about happiness and well-being. And additionally, there are other resources that we have available. These are 2 free confidential support resources that are available. We have the Employee Assistance Program available to all city employees and family members. And we also have NYC Well, which is available 24/7 to anyone in the city of New York via texting, calling. So take advantage of these resources and feel free to share them with others as well. So, all right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Marissa, and we're going to go from there and get some few questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I know I was scribbling my own wellness to-do list while you were talking. So we have time for a few questions before we wrap things up today. So if you have questions, please type them into the chat box. It's in the upper right corner of your screen. And while I'm going to give you a minute to think about and type in your questions, I just want to say thank you again for joining us today. We hope that this was helpful to you. We will be sharing the slides, the worksheets again, and some additional references in case you want to dive deeper into the world of creating a happier path for yourself. But we also hope that you will be willing to share your feedback with us about this webinar so that we can continue to create webinars and other content that's useful to you. So there's a URL of the survey on your screen. You can copy paste it into your browser. We'll also be sending out a follow-up email with the survey link, as well as everything discussed today and the recording of the webinar. And so let's see if any questions have come in. Yeah, a lot of people are saying they'd like the materials to share with others. We will be circulating the slides, as I said, and definitely I think people are talking about different applications, high school students, employees, for people who work in HR. And I think happiness is universal, right? I think, it's something we're all hardwired for, and it's something that we all deserve to work towards. So let's share the love, share the resources, and go forward. Let's see, give you a couple more seconds if anyone has any content-specific questions for Jeremy or Monica. Maybe I have a question. What if if I want to tackle all of these areas, but if there's one that I want to start with, so if maybe I can't change in all 6 areas at once, but is there one that is maybe the most important to start with, or any tips on how to get started?
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Monica Rushari. So to answer the question, there is no one specific field that is more important to start with. When you think about what is most important for you, that should be the one that you start with. And also, what is the thing that you need to improve and change, and what is the thing that you need to do? And I believe the most important thing that can lead to positive result and change and increase your well-being, that you identify what you need to do and you feel that you can do it. Because oftentimes what people end up, because we all know what needs to be done, but we set our goals very high, and we start to do things that we are not ready for. So that's why when Jeremy listed the different things on our to-do list and asked to list simple things that we believe we can do, if we do that, then we have a better chance to actually stick with what we are trying to do and see the result.
Great. Another question that just came in are there a few simple things that I can do to not only improve my happiness, but the happiness of my team at work?
Okay.
How do we bring happiness to the workplace?
Workplace, yes, that's an entirely different field to apply the kind of rules of happiness. But if you think about just what we learned today, being pro-social, practicing pro-social behavior, taking care of other people, or focusing on other people and their needs, that can increase their happiness as well and our own happiness. And also when we talked about smiling is very important. Just the smile itself, I know we didn't have time to talk about that, but it has a biological effect, increasing our happiness. So at the workplace, if we are making a conscious effort on smiling, that can improve the morale and the workplace environment. So these to start with, but I hope that we will have a chance to talk a little bit more later on. How can we improve happiness and well-being at the workplace?
I hope we have a couple hundred smiling employees at their desk right now. I know we're smiling in the room. Do you have any recommendations for breathing exercises or affirmations to help people kind of feel more mindful?
Yes. Breathing exercises, simple breathing exercises and simple muscle relaxation exercises we can all do. The breathing exercises we can do just breathe in, counting for maybe 3, hold in the breath for 2 or 3, and then just breathe out slowly. And we can do this a few times. And if you do this and just really focusing on how you breathe in and out, and when you breathe out, maybe think that you are breathing out and your problems and difficulties, that can really lead to immediate sense of relief or stress to some level. And with the muscle relaxation, and I don't know that if the handouts or the resources listed, but there is a list of 3 simple breathing and relaxation exercises, so anyone wants to use them, that's there.
So that will be sent out afterwards. 3 relaxation exercises that you all can do, on your own.
And another exercise, just to say, that's what people can do even at the workplace. If you have to be walking around, just if you walk and count, and as you breathe in, count how many steps you take, and you breathe out, count how many steps you take, and you do this maybe for 2 minutes. That can also reduce your tension and stress.
Great. Someone is asking, and I'm sure, from time to time we all experience situations like this, but how do you cope with dealing with a difficult coworker without them affecting your own happiness? So maybe are there some strategies to kind of focus on your own happiness despite what's going on around you?
Right. So if we are not thinking about helping maybe to other coworker who is unhappy, because sometimes that's a good action actually, because we can feel happy because we're helping someone. But the other thing is really focusing on our own happiness and what we are doing, or thinking about something that is pleasant. And I don't know if you heard that just looking at the screen at the work, something pleasant, maybe a fluffy animal or smiling face, that can increase happiness. So there are little strategies, but I believe that there's a workshop later on focusing on this specific topic.
And I think, many of us city workers, we have children that we care for. So how can you, do you have any tips for talking to your children about being and kind of making sure that they set out, building these healthy habits in their youth?
Yeah, so one thing, there are many things. Everything that we are doing for ourselves, we are setting examples for our children. That's number one. And I think that engaging consciously our children into activities that we are doing and teaching them with the purpose of teaching them for being happier and with a better well-being for a future life, that's a second thing. And also a good example is mindfulness. And I know that it was a New York Times article that in England, they are introducing mindfulness in the school for the purpose, because children understand that. What you can do at home, that when you sit down for dinner, or when you meet your children coming home from the school, no one looks at the phone, no one not turning on the TV, but actually engaging in the conversation, focusing on what your child is telling you. And when you are enjoying the dinner together, also focusing on the food and just the company. So these are the very simple, that's on top of my head.
Yeah, that's great. Someone else also just shared that, practicing gratitude with your children, asking them at the end of the day what they're grateful for, what good happened in their day, can also, they've found, helps to build positivity in their children.
And that's really, for gratitude, a good example. We can have a gratitude box in a family, and you can drop in that these are things that I'm happy for, I like you about, and this can be a family tradition.
Wonderful. So many great tips and great strategies for us all to get started with. So thank you again to Jeremy and to Monica. We will be sharing the recording, the slides, and all of the great resources that were mentioned via email in the next couple of days. And when you get that email, please also do take a minute to fill out our survey and give us some feedback on how you felt about today's presentation. So thank you so much for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful, positive afternoon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.